Welcome to Let's Play. I'm Alessandra Wall.
And I'm Derek Yanford.
We're risk takers,
Troublemakers,
people who say what needs to be said,
and ask the questions most people won't.
This is a podcast for serious and not so serious people doing big things.
Every episode, we dig into something real: fear, power, the shit that's in the way.
Sometimes with guests, sometimes just us.
Always unscripted, always honest.
If you're tired of surface level conversations
and ready to actually go somewhere,
you're in the right place.
Let's play.
Gorgeous, darling, gorgeous.
Okay. What did we talk about last week and the week before and the week before that? Last week we talked about questions from childhood.
Yeah.
I think of these calls in advance of our calls, and I realize a ton of my questions center around power, or a lot of what I spend my time thinking about is power, how to understand what your power is, how to show up in power, where we give up power, what other people's issues are with our power,
Mhm.
the discrepancy of how we see ourselves and how others see us.
Mhm.
This is really interesting. You will see on that shared coaching program that we're in. I'm going to put a note in there later on today and just tell everybody, hey, we don't have a call this week, but I'm going to host a call.
Oh, cool.
And so I contacted Rich to make sure that that was okay. And he said, sure, no problem. He said, just remember, everything's an enrollment, and how you do this will determine who shows up in the room and how they show up. And suddenly he upped the ante, right? I'm like,
Okay.
so I messaged our friend Nyama and I'm like, this feels like a challenge. Suddenly I feel like I'm being put through a test of how I put this out there. And Nyama's comeback was, you're already pretty powerful in how you show up. Just put it out there. And I'm like, yes, but, right? Like, there is this sense that there is this expectation for more. And my sense of, well, it's just showing up like me, not enough to meet that expectation. Because I tend to cede my power a lot.
But I'm curious, are you talking about the expectation of what you'll deliver or people showing up?
Oh, I'm not delivering anything. I'm a manifester. So what I do is I bring people together.
Okay.
I throw out really great ideas,
Okay.
and I create containers. I
Okay.
create opportunities, and I create motivation. So
Okay.
my idea isn't let me show up as your coach and I'll coach you through something or
Yeah.
any of that thing. My idea was, I actually wrote it down somewhere. I said, the 100K might be on a gap week, but our lives aren't on a gap. Our
Mhm.
lives and our businesses run continuously. So anybody who's interested on jumping on a call and maybe getting some help or some insight around a question you're dealing with, a challenge you're working on, like an opportunity that you're trying to build, I'm going to be at this link at this time. I could definitely use help with those things in my own business and life. So let's come together and work together and serve each other, right?
Okay.
That's the way I was going to present it. And I'm like, is that powerful enough? Like, is that enough of a, am I supposed to do anything else than that? Because I tend to show up in most places very casually,
Mhm.
or what I perceive as casual. Maybe other people are like, oh, she's so French, which is not casual. Um, and there are a number of reasons for that, right? I show up in places really casually because I don't want to intimidate people. So I want to invite people to come and to have people feel welcome. And being casual kind of removes that.
Mhm.
I show up casually in places because I want to destabilize the power structures in a room. So when you have a very stratified power structure in a space, and somebody doesn't obey those rules, shows up and talks to the CEO, the president, the principal, like they're just a regular schmuck like everybody else,
Okay.
right? It throws off the power dynamics in a space. And
Yeah.
because I don't often feel like I'm at the top of those power dynamics, it's a really nice way of just like leveling the conversation. Um, and I think I show up really casually sometimes because, and I just realized this now as I'm saying it, because that way if I screw up, I can say, well, you know, I was just like, this wasn't very serious. Like I was showing up super casually,
Okay.
right? So this just had me thinking about power again, which is top of my mind. Like, the women I work with are really powerful women who sometimes like stand in their power so clearly, and other times it's not imposter syndrome. I want to be clear about this, but they don't honor or they doubt their power in a certain space in a certain moment. Like it's these instants of
Yeah.
um
Wait.
yeah.
What I find just in this moment is so interesting is when I asked you about power around what you're going to be delivering or power who's going to show up. You, to me, you dismissed the showing up. You launched right into what I do is this, and you said it very powerfully to me. And then there was a moment, and you were like, "But is it enough? Is it, you know?" And then there was this casual story. Then you started telling me about this is what you do with the women that you work with, how they show up powerfully, but they kind of maybe doubt that a little bit.
Mhm.
I'm curious, where is the doubt for you in whatever it is, the container that you do, whatever the call, however it's executed, where is the doubt for you?
I definitely am still in that position of somebody who wants to be in the room with people who she finds impressive in intimidating ways.
Mm.
Right. So there's this dichotomy, and it's part of the reason I'm not always a fan of this notion of imposter syndrome, because imposter syndrome, people, it's a very blanket state. There's part of me that's like, I totally belong in this room, and I totally have something of value for this individual. Whether it's an interesting conversation, an insight, my attention is valuable. But at the same time, when you
Mhm.
put me in that room, I'm like, but how do I like show up? And there's a sense of, do I actually belong?
Mm.
How do I impress? How do I fit in?
Mm.
And instead of, because I have this huge distaste for that notion of fitting in my inner rebel is like, I'm not going to fit in. I'm going to do the anti-fitting in. I'm just going to show up like I belong here.
Mhm.
And I'm going to talk to you like you're not Melinda French Gates. Melinda, if you're listening, I would really love a meeting with you. I think you're really fascinating, and we could see how this plays out in real life. Um, and it's interesting because it's paradoxical, because showing up in that way has people look at me and go, oh my goodness, like she shows up so powerfully. Look at her. She's not intimidated. But
Yeah.
inside, I'm like, this is a defense mechanism. It's not a defense mechanism. This is an adaptation to a realization that what's going on in my head and what's going on in the world, they're not in sync. And so
Mhm.
it's my best way of making sure that I'm in sync with what's going on in the world rather than what's possibly going on in my head.
So my question is, from what you just kind of detailed, would your preference be to, if you could only choose between the two, be perceived as, wow, powerful, no intimidation, great, strong, or feel powerful, wonderful, the way that you want to feel? There's no doubt inside your body. If you could only choose between the two, which of those two would you prefer?
feel like I should have like a straight up answer. I mean, clearly the right, and if you're listening, I just did air quotes, answer is is the feel piece. Because the reality is the feeling piece should translate in some way into the appearing piece. But if you'd positioned this like one of my kids, those stupid questions where it's like, would you rather have 1,000 slugs going all over you, or, one of those kind of questions. So I was waiting for something worse. If the question was appear but not feel at all,
Mhm.
or feel, then it's feel.
Okay.
But if I felt really confident and powerful, but what came across was something that wasn't aligned with that, that would be problematic. The reality of the way the world functions and the way human beings are
Mhm.
is that can be problematic.
So what?
Do you ever, in a world where we are interdependent in terms of creating opportunities,
Mhm.
and where a lot of the opportunities I'm creating are around this notion of power, being in power, using your power for good, feeling
Yes.
powerful, which to me is feeling centered. Like when I talk about powerful for people listening, I'm not talking about this like fist pounding on the table. Watch me walking in. I am woman. Hear me roar. I control everything. I know all this stuff. It's more of this embodied. Our friend Kate Hurd talks about sovereign power.
Mhm.
It's more of that sense of this embodied confidence, self-worth, um, an ability to stand in your authority without shrinking.
Mhm.
I don't always do that latter one. Um, And it's not that there's never self-doubt, but that self-doubt can be managed. Like if you think you're really powerful, but you experience no self-doubt, you're just full of shit. Like you're probably really insecure in reality.
A strong statement.
I believe that. I think every human who has even a modicum of self-awareness has moments where they wonder, what if? And and that moment is a moment of insecurity. What if I don't belong? What if I make a mistake? What if I'm not the insecurity doesn't need to look like social anxiety and fear and being minuscule. It's just this moment of not feeling 100% powerful. And I think anybody who walks around and doesn't experience those moments actually either has no self-awareness, has a personality disorder, type A, so narcissism, sociopathology, psychopathology, one of those, um, or is lying to themselves.
So from that perspective, being a person in this conversation who's named, I am powerful, I know I'm powerful because X, Y, and Z, and I doubt myself sometimes, I do have that. Would you say then everything's good? You are a powerful person because you exhibit those traits.
Well, let's start with this. Everything's good,
Okay.
right? In general, everything's good. What I'm really interested in, again, when we talk about this power, is within whatever power you are, what's the edge up?
Mm.
And what has been brought to my attention with myself, and this is why I'm so grateful that I work with a coach. I'm so grateful that I'm surrounded by incredible coaches who can challenge me, right? Is that there is often a discrepancy between the way I show up and the way I feel, the way
Mm.
I feel and the way I see myself,
Mhm.
and that discrepancy can move in any direction depending on the situation. So I was told recently I should read this book. I have to look up the name. It's a Ben Hardy book. Which one is it? Scale Up? Is that it? Um, and in it, The Science of Scaling by Benjamin Hardy. Um, you know, Benjamin Hardy likes to talk about floor activities, things that really don't move you towards your 10x edge. He's the same guy who wrote the book 10x is easier than 2x. And I was I went into my GPT the other day, Veritas, which is my like coaching GPT.
Mhm.
And I said, okay, here's some thoughts, here's some things based on what you know about me, based on what I've written, whatever. What would you say are some floor activities for me? And Veritas came out and it said, um, when you show up as a helper rather than an authority.
Mm.
That's a floor activity for you. And I recognize that. I think you and I talked. My first business coach, true business coach, said she listened to one of my client calls one day, and she said, "Oh, Sandra, of course they love you, but they're not going to buy from you. It's like you just showed up like their best friend. They have shared so much with you, and they're so grateful. And they would love to go grab wine with you or go on vacation, but you have not showed up with your authority."
Ah.
And so I don't know about you, but I use a lot of my personal self-reflection to also look at the people I work with because I'm very similar to the people I work with. And likewise, I use a lot of their self-reflection to look back at myself. I use like those coaching moments as a mirror. I'm like,
Mhm.
where are the similarities? Where are the differences? So I've also been seeing this come up a lot. Just did an intensive with a client, a 1 day intensive. It was fun and it was intense. It was exhausting. I coached her from 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And even with a 2 hour lunch break where I'm like, okay, we're breaking. I'm not your coach for the next 2 hours. We're two business women. We're having lunch together and we're just going to have fun. And then we'll pick back.
Mm. Nice.
Towards the end of the call, this woman she's incredible. And we were talking about this change she wants to affect in the world in the next 3 years. And she said it out loud and she felt it. And then as we were walking to the last part of our intensive, which was to go to a museum together and do a curated tour of the museum together, she said, I feel like I'm being a little, what's the word she used? She compared herself to Elon Musk, but she
Okay.
used it to mean kind of narcissistic,
Okay.
right? It was not a positive comparison. Um, as in, who do I think I am? And I said, well, let me ask you this. Do you have the technical know-how to make this change? She goes, absolutely. I said, are you capable of making this change? She goes, absolutely. I said, is it feasible in the next 3 years? She goes, absolutely. And I said, so where's that coming from?
Mhm.
Who is going to be saying, who the hell does she think she is?
Mhm.
Right? So we were looking at that. That is an example of somebody standing in their power in that moment immediately. And we all do that. And I catch myself doing it sometimes, and it's something I don't know. It was really interesting. I had this very casual thing. I'm going to invite everybody who's in this coaching program to just jump on a call. But suddenly this standard was set.
Yeah.
This idea by somebody else that I had the capability of sitting into a standard or that I should be able to set a certain standard,
Mhm.
right? It was
Mhm.
an assumption. Hey, the way, just so you know, the way you do this is, and immediately I started doubting my way of doing it,
Yeah.
whether that was powerful enough. Like, because that's really what it is.
Yeah.
But the more I thought about it, I'm like, oh, that's because I was going to show up as the casual helper.
Yeah.
Yo, yo, yo. I know we don't have a call this week, but if you want, let's all get together. We can help each other. That's going to be so awesome.
Yeah, you nailed it. Can I
Right?
ask you? I want to ask you this question just because I'm super curious. In your audience, either whoever that is, who dislikes you the most? And you don't have to use their name unless
No,
you
no,
want.
no, no. I was gonna crack a joke initially, but it was a cheap joke about marriage, and I'm like, but it's actually not true. Um, First of all, I think anybody who really dislikes me in my audience
Mhm.
stops following me. But
Okay.
they're always, I mean, they tend to be dudes for the most part, and I use that word very specifically. They're not men, they're not gentlemen. I tend to refer to men as gentlemen very often. Um, they tend to be dudes who think that I am either full of shit
Mm-hmm.
because my elevation of women is somehow an affront to them or makes me a snowflake, or um, I mean, I want to say they're probably people who are intimidated because I really do. I it's interesting. Sorry, as we speak about this, and the reason as I stop is I am a person who's filled with uh, dichotomies. We talked about this, right?
Yeah.
Won't use a Ouija board, but
Yeah.
doesn't believe in life after death, right?
Yes.
And so it's one of those things where, like, when I say I show up really casually, it's not just this thing I pretend to do. It's the way
Yes.
I've learned to show up.
Yeah.
It's what works for me. It's a very natural way for me. And it can work it can work in my favor, but sometimes it works against me, meaning it's too casual and I get rid of
Yeah.
power. But
Yeah.
I would say they're probably out there a category of people, mostly dudes, but not just dudes, who feel that I am too powerful. Like I piss them off because I just kind of not only do I say what I believe in, but also I'm not going to get in a debate with you,
Yeah.
right? If you really don't, if you really disagree with my perspective, I'll listen. But if you truly disagree with some of the things I say, dude, I'm like, your point of view is not worth my time. I just don't care. So I'm not going to debate with you. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not even going to try to convince you that I'm right because I don't care about you enough to do that.
Beautiful.
But honestly, my original thing is like, I don't know that anybody really hates me. I'm sure people do. But think about power. That's really powerful to be that dichotomizing with people that some people truly hate you.
Yeah. It's interesting because for me, I know that there are people who really do not enjoy me. And some of them, from the dance teacher perspective, it's a little bit more forced upon because I'm a teacher at their school and they're enrolled in my class.
Mhm.
Now, they can maybe make some arguments to get out, or which I have now that I say that, I had a student who wanted out. And the thing about it is, a younger version of me would have tried to figure out what the problem was, meaning I'm doing something wrong.
Mhm.
And the older version of me goes, no, this has nothing to do with anything other than part of my design or the way that I show up will not be for everybody. And some of that, there's some parts of it I can't help. The color of my skin,
Mhm.
my sexuality, there, whatever, the way I might say something, I've come to know I will walk in rooms and with doing nothing and having not met anybody, I am met with disdain. And I used to sink. I used to shrink and I used to code switch and try to please a little bit.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that I'm coming to understand with power is being able to see those people and go, fuck, I love that you're here. Because what it means is I don't need to be affected or I'm not affected about whether you like me or you don't like me. And in fact, I actually want to hear what you have to say sometimes because it helps me understand that I'm moving in the direction that's aligned with me because it's pissing you off. Right. And that's a switch. That's a switch for me. And I see and hear what you're saying, your dichotomy of, well, I maybe show up casually. It doesn't work in my best interest. But what I really heard is like, I'm a fucking bad bitch. And if you, I ain't got time for you at all. You know what I mean? Like I hear that. And I'm saying this too because I just worked with a client yesterday and we were doing this grounding exercise. And I asked her to place her awareness on her power and purpose. And after it was over, she said initially when she first heard that, she puffed out her chest and she stood up. And then the next moment, she actually released it all. And she talked to me about how initially, when she heard power, she confused it with posturing. Mm-hmm. She thought, I need to be and look powerful.
Yeah.
And then she recognized, no, power is being seated. It is not having to do X, Y, and Z. So I believe for myself too, I get caught in the trappings of what I think power is or should look like. And then when I'm reminded, what usually happens is, oh, power is actually happening when I'm not concerned with what anybody thinks at all. And some of the most powerful, I'm also doing air quotes for people who are listening, people, the ones who can have massive influence, what I've noticed is the more power or perceived power they garnish, the greater the risk of losing power. And so they actually become quite powerless. They're very insecure because not having more power or losing power is so threatening. Mm-hmm. So for me, I start to measure and going, if I were to lose power or image or whatever it is in this situation, can I be okay with that? And the more I am able to answer that question and go, yes, the more powerful I recognize I am. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And that's a flip. Like that's a 180. And it doesn't always feel great. Sometimes I have to like remind myself, and other times it's there.
So we started this episode the way we started a lot of episodes. And what's interesting is I know you and I are going to talk about this, but in season 1.2, right, of this of this podcast, actually one of the things I want to do is sit down with you in advance and talk about how do we structure these conversations a little bit more so that as the listeners are listening, instead of us meandering and getting to a point, we know what point we want to bring about, and then we tell them a story to get them there. Mm. And so, but my style is very much meandering. A lot of times I'll have great conversations and like, it'll take me 20 minutes or an hour to like, for the insight to drop.
Yeah.
And then I'll go back and I'll contact somebody. I'm like, hey, this thing happened, or I'll rewrite in my head what I wanted to say. I'll often write back to people. But what I think is really interesting, if we rewind a lot of what we said and kind of summarize to this point in the conversation, it's what I'm getting from this is the following things. Power is a really interesting concept. I actually think that right now in the world, the way things are, people's ability to understand what their power is, stand in their power, and choose how they want to leverage their power to impact the world is as more important than ever. Oftentimes I'll tell you this, in the world of women in particular, power is a really tricky word to use. It's like the word ambition or money driven. These are all words that in and of themselves mean nothing, but in the world of women can be a really double-edged sword. So telling a woman she's so powerful, or a woman talking about her power can be used as a negative. Mm-hmm. Ambition's another one like that. She's so ambitious. Like nobody looks at a guy and say he's so ambitious, and that tone behind that is, and look at what that means about how uncaring or whatever he is. But so for me, this conversation of power, I think it's coming in several places. It's showing up because of what I just said. We are in a time and a place where I think it's essential for people to understand what their power is, to understand how they want to leverage that power, and to stand in that power. And for all of us, it's different. My dad's power, he was a very quiet, soft-spoken man. Like my dad once said, "Damn it, Alessandra," and I knew he was furious with me.
Mhm.
His power was in his patience, in his ability to take the time to explain something to a small child and have patience. Like it's just he was not an alpha, right? He's definitely a beta dude.
Okay.
But that didn't mean he wasn't powerful. So your power stands in certain things, my power stands in certain things. In the world I work in, I also think because I'm in perimenopause, there are a lot of hormonal shifts that take place for women in perimenopause that change how we respond to the world, like how we're affected by the way the world looks at us or thinks about us. Basically, we care less. But also, for some women, right, perimenopause is not this single set of symptoms, but let's say for women who experience, uh, as I have it now, brain fog or rage, or high levels of emotionality, you come to a stage often in your life where you have the opportunity to have the most influence you can in society, in your jobs or whatever, but you are experiencing these things that are entirely out of your control, hormonally driven, that can make you feel less
Mhm.
powerful
Mhm.
or more vulnerable, right? Those are not flip sides of the same coin. They're two different concepts, less powerful, more vulnerable. Um, so I think that notion of what it means to be powerful is very much there for me, because both for me and for the women I work with right now, we're at a stage where we're suddenly free of the shackles of caring quite as much what other people think. But that doesn't mean we're not affected by public opinion,
Sure.
right? Um, and the third thing is, for me, it's because of the work I'm doing. So the work I'm doing with the people I'm doing this work with ties those two things together.
Mhm.
I'm working with people who I perceive as very powerful. And what I mean by that is they have in them all the necessary ingredients to be influential in making the world a better place. And I want to support them in doing that, whether the world is their block or whether it's a whole industry or whether it's literally the world.
Mm.
Right. So the client I was speaking to works in affordable housing, and one of the big insights she had in our intensive together is she doesn't just care about affordable housing in terms of the people who will have access to those houses. She actually, and she surprised herself, has this deep, deep care for the humans whose labor allows developers to make money and people in the finance industry to make money from these um, affordable housing units, and the people who eventually inhabit the units to have those units.
Mhm.
Right. And she said the labor is literally and figuratively backbreaking. So the professional life of these laborers is so short, and then they're broken. Their bodies are put in as much stress as elite athletes, without the massages, without the
Mhm.
endorsements, and certainly without the paycheck to carry them. When at 40 they're broken and their body is broken and they still have to put food on the table.
Mm.
Right. So here's this woman who is in a space that I find so important, affordable housing. We have a huge crisis for that in San Diego,
Mm.
who has not only made it her mission to make sure that more affordable housing is available and built for the people who need it, but who suddenly is looking at the larger system and how it's impacting people, right? She is in a position of massive influence. So it's so important for me as her thought partner, as her advisor, as her coach, to make sure that she is in a position to make good on this ideal she has and this vision she has of what the world could be like
Mhm.
in that space. And to me, the biggest barrier to her ability to do that are not economic circumstances. They're not gender bias in this space, which is huge. It's whether or not she can stay connected to her internal power,
Mm.
because with that comes agency, and with agency comes change.
Mhm. Beautiful.
So I agree with you. Like, I just want to walk our speaker through this, because this is why I think this conversation is so important. And yes, I start off with like my own conflict and and back and forth with power, but mostly A, because it's interesting to me. It's my most interesting topic. B, because I think it runs parallel to most people. In other words, I'm not unique, right? In that experience. And C, because I just really find it fascinating how any one of us, which sadly is not each one of us, but any one of us can stand and in certain moments feel so grounded. You talked about your client kind of like that seated thing, right? I feel like this grounded, this planted thing where my roots are going in and I can stand here and I stand tall, not because I'm trying to prop myself up, but I stand tall because I feel rooted in who I am, what I am. Like how in one instant we can be in that space and in the next instant, suddenly we can question how that's happening. And if that instant lasts too long, we can lose opportunities, our voice, right? The momentum we had. So knowing how to stay in that, and I completely 100% agree with you. When we learn how to be self-aware, that's what you taught about, walking into a room and going, catching yourself. And then we learn to use that self-awareness nearly, I think you talked, you didn't use the word, but there's curiosity in your approach. I would love to hear what you have to say, person who I believe is so offended by my mere existence and presence in this room. And I find it really interesting that you say don't care. I don't know that I wouldn't care. I think I would care enough that I would actually be amused.
Sure.
I personally, I don't know about you. I personally, it's not that I don't care. I'd tell my clients, I want everybody to think I'm amazing. I'm just realistic.
Yeah.
And not everybody thinks I'm amazing. Actually, some people think I'm probably dumb, pretty annoying, have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Question is, when faced with those people, can I hold on to what I know to be true about me, which is in some contexts, I am amazing, and in other contexts, I am dumb and annoying. But just because that's what you think about me doesn't mean that it's the whole of who I am.
Exactly. And the thing that I've come to know too, in terms of power, my own power, my understanding of power, sometimes the most powerful thing is the thing that I is the least detectable to me. Is it's invisible. I'm not even aware that it's there. I haven't considered it at all. And maybe this would be something like the foundation of a building when I'm on the 87th floor. I'm fascinated by the people, the architecture, all these things. But the greatest, most powerful part of me even being able to have that experience is the foundation that I have never visited, that is beneath this, that I don't even know what it looks like or any of those things, or the design that went into it, or all the other things about it. And so what I'm always, not always, but I'm considering more now so than I did before is, where have I been powerful and maybe overlooked that, or haven't given myself credit because it didn't take effort, or nobody commented, or it's just regular, or all these other things, as opposed to, giving myself credit for power because it was difficult and I had to work here. And like today, I had to talk myself out of this whole negative story that I was creating when I was working with my trainer. Because the first 20 minutes, I could do some stuff. And then the second 20 minutes, I was like, oh my God, he's going to think I'm a loser and I'm weak and all of these things. And then the last 20 minutes, we went more for exhaustion. And then he just was like, Derek, this is just, you've got to start somewhere. This is where you're at today. And when he asked me, how was it? And I said, listen, if I'm being honest, I'm really fighting the part of me that says, you're a weakling. Why can't you do this? You should be stronger than this, or whatever. And it was in that moment that he said to me, listen, you have to communicate with me. You have to tell me what's going on. I cannot read your mind, you don't have to, all this stuff. And I was like, the old version of me, the more maybe would have walked out, would have been like, oh no, I'm good, I can handle it. And would have said, you are weak, but suck it up. Mm-hmm. And now I recognize the more powerful version of me admits. And then my brain calmed down a little bit. And then I was able to recover. and then I started writing a new story. I was like, you're not weak, bro. You're not weak. This is whatever. And in fact, I want to go and work on some of the exercises he gave me so that I build stamina and not wait until I see him again. And all of those things for me, I'm coming to learn is also power and is powerful. But as a person standing on the outside, maybe witnessing that, it may look or feel very, very different. So there's all these different perspectives that I have now of power. And from that, I hope to be able to choose more relevantly or more wisely which version either serves me or my client.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it might be the less powerful version, right? So if I'm a fire hose, yeah, we can turn the fire hose up all the way. We have more power than we can fucking knock things out. But is it relevant? So power might be going, well, yes, you have it all, darling, but you only need this much. You know what I mean?
So as you're talking, a couple things come to mind. One is like how we use words interchangeably that sound like they mean the same thing but don't.
Mm,
So, can you put a pin in the word intensity for me for a second,
sure.
just in case I forget it? So one is you're talking about showing up powerfully, and I'm watching Billions right now
Okay.
because I was compared to Wendy Rhodes, so I had to watch past episode 1 and 2. Um, and oftentimes we confuse influence and power. So
Mm-hmm.
people who are uber wealthy have an incredible amount of influence
Mm,
with their wealth, because we say money is power, but money isn't power, money is influence. Influence
mm,
can have a powerful impact,
mm,
right? So with a lot of money, I can influence the markets. With a
mm,
lot of money, I can influence the decisions you make. I can't
mhm,
make you do anything, but I can certainly influence you. I can offer you $1 million or $2 million or $5 million to make a different choice than the choice you were going to make,
mm,
right? I can hire other people to do things. So with money comes influence. But there are
mm,
plenty of people who have all that influence in the form of money, but aren't really powerful people.
mm,
They're reactive, they're fearful, they're insecure, which is different from having insecurity. Everybody has insecurity.
mhm,
So they walk around insecure. They wield that influence simply to prop themselves up, right? It's not like it's a reaction to not feeling powerful. So I'm going to show you I'm powerful. I'm going to show you what I can do with all my money. I'm going to
yes.
show you that, right? So there's that first idea, like power, influence. Power to me is an internal thing. It's a state. Influence is how I can use that internal state if I want to then create a shift in the world.
Okay.
And then you were talking about showing up powerfully in, for example, a coaching session, but you were talking about intensity,
Mm,
right? I think even when you dim the intensity of your intervention, the question, the day you choose to, as Rich says, coach high flame versus with a feather,
mhm,
both are really, really powerful. The fact that you can distinguish between both, that you can identify where the need exists, what state the person you're talking to is in, and what they need. I think that is an incredibly powerful thing. But that's part of the reason why I said, when I talk about power, I don't talk about a woman. And again, if you're listening, I'm putting my hands up and like slamming them down, like I'm slamming them on a table. It isn't a like, I'm here, you're going to listen to me. Like, that's not powerful, that's loud, that's aggressive.
mm,
It might also be powerful, or it might be actually the one thing that demonstrates my lack of power in a space,
sure. Exactly.
right? So we use all these words interchangeably. I really like the way you and I have been talking about power as this internal state
Mhm.
of, I guess, a combination of self-awareness, self-acceptance, and groundedness.
I mean, it's interesting too because I believe those things, and so sometimes I question, for me too, if I have a greater range of intensity, if I have a car that can go 500 miles on one tank of gas, it can go from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, it can do all of these things. It has the capacity for greater intensity. Does it make it, or do I think, or do I perceive it to be more powerful than a car that can only go 200 miles on a full tank of gas, that takes 12 seconds to go from 0 to 60? It can go at the same speeds, it can drive, it can take the corners, but the way in which it can operate is different. Do I see them as having, do I say, well, I want the most powerful car that you have on the lot? Show me the most powerful car that you have.
Yeah.
Now, if I drive it only in the neighborhood to deliver groceries to whoever, however I want to use it, I believe that too, having the wherewithal of how you want to use it. But I think for me, I think for me too, there's this dynamic of choice versus circumstance.
Yeah.
Am I making a decision or a choice or an action because my circumstances are limited, or because I have full access to everything? This is the one that I want, right? And I remember having a ballet teacher who, and I was being ballet class and I have limited turnout. And I was taught, I had Russian teachers, and a lot of times we were taught to force our turnout, right? We want to create this look of ballet. We want to create this look of turnout.
Turnout's the one where your feet go out like this.
Away from each other, yeah.
But they're in front of each other, right? So your knees are touching just for those of us who are.
So instead of your legs or your feet pointing to the front of you, if you rotated and turned your legs out, they would go to the sides.
But here's my question. This is such a side note, but I just want to. So are we talking about turnout as in my feet are like this, or as in my feet are like this?
Either or.
Okay.
Either or, because we want to create the illusion that this is what our legs do. So whether we're standing in first position side by side or one in front of the other, I want to create the illusion that my legs have this amount of turnout.
Sorry, dear listener. Sometimes I track.
Okay, you can take them out of tangent.
I just want to picture it.
She said to me, "Why are you doing that?" And I was like, "Why am I doing what?" And she's like, "Why are you forcing your turnout in the way that you are?" I'm like, "Well, I want to have this look." And she's like, "Yeah, but now you've limited your options. You don't have the options that you would have if you would work from the turnout that you truly have." And she said, dancing is about options. So you can create this idea that you have this perfect turnout, but you're going to not be able to move, especially when it comes to being very quick to this, and that. We want to now change the weight and do these things. So you can stay there if you'd like, or you could operate from the turnout that you have, and you will notice how many more options you have. And from her saying that to me in that way, I had a choice. Do I let go of the idea, the perception, the look that I have something that I don't really have? Or do I say, well, your turnout is limited, but get what she's talking about? Now I can move and do all of these things in a more dynamic way. You know what I mean? And it took me a long time to come to the realization, this is more, what she's talking about is more powerful. But I had believed other teachers.
But the rigidity of the other one.
Yeah.
Suffering.
Yeah.
Which comes back, by the way, to our very first episode.
Correct.
Right? That's so, again, that's the thing that's so interesting to me. If we take all our conversations, they really center around some really core concepts: self-knowledge, agency, choice, autonomy in that space, right? That comes with agency and choice, impact, and what we want our impact to be for ourselves, for others, and all the ways in which sometimes we sabotage ourselves in doing that. So let me give you an example of your morning with your trainer. there's a moment where you were talking, and just so you know, I was paying attention to you, but monkey brain. So you're talking, and I'm going back to the opening part of our conversation today, and I'm like, oh my goodness, do I sound so full of myself? Oh, I know I'm powerful, whatever, whatever. And then my brain goes to another part and goes, well, I painted myself as somebody who only comes in and is super casual and like, hi, girlfriend, how are you? Love you. Hey, BFF. But I'm like, but that's not me. I mean, it is sometimes not quite like that, but that's super warm. If you're watching, if you're not, if you're listening, go find the video and watch because there's only one way I can show this. There's this part, this time where this is who I am. I'm this person. I'm hand on my, I will find my words. This is un menton in French. Chin on my hand. Ooh, leaning forward, and I am listening to you like you are the most fascinating, captivating person I've ever seen, right? Or spoken to. That is that warm side of me. That's the side of me that's going to walk in. It's the side of me that, you're new in this place, and I'm going to go up and go, what's going on? How's it happening? It's the RLI, who wants to go and grab drinks, right?
Yes.
But the truth is, there's this other side of me, like this side of me. Right? She's the one who kind of stands tall and says, I hear you, and there's nothing I can do about it. Like it is what it is, right? And I care deeply, and I have questions for you. And it's the smoldering look for anybody who's watched the Jumanji, right? They're like, what's that when The Rock has this one of his powers in Jumanji, and the newer one is that he has a smoldering look. And there's this look, if you read Vanessa Van Edwards Q's, I can't remember what it's called, but it's that look where you kind of crease your eyebrows a little bit. You'll see it a lot when you see people's most attractive man, right? What is that? People's 100 most sexiest men, right? And you'll see the smolder, and it's the downward look where you're kind of looking at somebody from. And there's that part of me that literally that is the look. It's just like, well, let's talk. Help me understand, right? And the energy shifts. So as you're talking, I can feel my power and my energy going away because I'm listening to you talking about what's going on with your trainer. And at the same time, I'm caught in my head going, oh my goodness, did I just make myself look like an idiot? First of all, did I make myself not fool myself? Now, did I make myself look like somebody who has no depth and no authority? And I need to catch all of it while also listening to the story. And we do this. What were you doing when you were doubting yourself? What was the movement you were doing?
Lunges.
Okay. So there you are, forward or back?
Forward.
So there you are, basically moving into a controlled forward fall, trying to keep your knee at 90 degrees so you don't like hurt yourself, trying to plant yourself in a way where you're actually going to get the stretch you need and not, overextend your back, not overextend your knee. And all the while in your head, and probably in constant motion, and all the while in your head, you are having this completely different conversation. And that conversation actually, even though you can automatically do that forward fall, which is what I think a lunge is, that conversation also erodes your ability to find the strength in your balance. So it can create a self-fulfilling prophecy because as you're distracted in your head, suddenly maybe you don't plant your foot the right way. You tweak your knee, it opens up a little bit too much on the outside, and then the bend of it affects you. We have that equivalent response in the conversations we have. If I'm having a conversation with you and it weren't on a lovely podcast where we exchange deep thoughts about important things and we play together, and suddenly I have this moment where I feel stupid. God, that was stupid. Why did I say it that way? And now I'm second guessing myself. I'm second guessing how I show up in the conversation, what I need to say to make up for the thing I think I might have said earlier and the impression I possibly maybe created.
Yes.
Then in that moment, I can't be me. And in that moment, I just lost power, but I also just lost opportunity. Now, to go back to what you were just saying, a little bit like the turnout. I have a choice in that moment to go, do I need to get as rigid as possible, correct everything, or can I just stand wherever I am the way I am? And in this moment, go either fuck it, it's over. That would be the best case scenario. Or say, okay, well, that's one option, but there are probably 50 other options that I could choose to handle how I'm feeling in this moment, to get back to being in this moment, which I can't be if I'm in my head.
Mm. Okay. What you've just done for me, all the way that you just took ownership over all of those different things that are happening in your brain while you're listening to me. My takeaway is like, oh, my brain just went in the struggle of you doing those lunges where you felt weak and ashamed of yourself. What you actually were doing was building power. That's what building, creating, and creating more power than what you have now feels like.
Mhm.
And the reason it feels like that is because it is more powerful than what you are now. So this is where you've got this weakness idea. And so now part of me from this conversation goes, oh, is it possible for when I'm feeling that weakness to go, well, you wanted greater power. This is what it is. To be maybe instead of feeling defeated by it, feeling empowered by it, literally going, oh, because I'm also like, I'm very afraid of struggling in front of him. Like, he's like, okay, I'm going to give you these weights. You let me know. I'm like, okay. And we start out okay. And then we get to a place where I'm like, ah! And now from this conversation, power building, bro. You dropping the weights, you shaking, you panting, you being afraid to show this trainer what's going on. You're power building. No weakness. No weakness. Power building.
Well, and your trainer really gave you a gift in that, right? I think about it for our clients. I wonder how often our clients don't tell us the things they need to say, not necessarily tell us the things they need to say for fear that we will perceive them as less than.
Sure.
Because I don't know about you, but I build my clients up, not because I'm bullshitting them and trying to make them feel great, but because I mirror for them what I see.
Yeah.
Um, so I have a client who I know to be truly powerful, but she doesn't see it in herself. She feels very lost right now. She needs to make big decisions about her life, but she doesn't have any idea what direction she wants to go in next, so she feels completely stuck.
Mm.
And the moment she starts feeling stuck, um, she starts feeling worthless, and she focuses only on what is not possible,
Mm.
and on why, if things go wrong, it's going to be the end of everything.
Mm.
And I'm not interested in making her believe that things will go right. I have no idea. I'm not a seer. I'd make so much more money if I were a seer. But I am so confident in her ability to maneuver if things don't go well, to recover
Mm.
if she meets hardship of any kind in making an imperfect choice.
Mhm.
We see very different versions of her. So she is stuck. Whereas I and the rest of her group, because she's part of one of my group coaching programs, all of us, and I don't know that I'd necessarily say it to her, although I might high flame just call it out for her. I just want to say, just do it. Stop finding excuses. Stop talking to all of us about how you've got nobody else to back you and it's all on you. And if you screw up, terrible things will happen. I'm like, yeah, but you know what? I have told her this. I'm like, you'll be able to notice that things are going wrong long before they get truly terrible.
Mm.
And there will be a loss, a financial loss, a time loss. There will probably be a moment of beating herself up and feeling guilty. Where I see her power is I've watched this woman evolve. I've known her for a few years on and off in different contexts. Like, I'm like, you can rebound from this
Mm.
and you
Beautiful.
will come out stronger and more knowledgeable. She doesn't see that power, right? So I wonder how often people like her or our clients who we mirror their power to, or we mirror admiration because we admire them, might not show up with all their fears or their insecurities because they don't want to disappoint us.
Sure. Sure. I, you know, I have been writing off this mantra ish since RLI, and I've said it in other calls before, that I am more powerful than I know. And Rich has said to me that to me over and over again. And I know it. I know it. What's different now, for whatever reason, when I'm scared, when I feel like I can't do something, I now call bullshit on myself. I go, bullshit. Bitch, you are fucking more powerful than you know. And that is the power of coaching. And I think that also comes from me coaching as well. Not just being coached, but me coaching and witnessing these other people, because I'm doing the same thing. Now I'm starting to do it for myself as well. And I believe this conversation, hopefully, too, is helping others that we've never coached, who've never had a coach or whatnot, starting to call bullshit on themselves and going, yeah, I see exactly what you're talking about in your client. I see that in myself. Maybe for even in, let's say, 20 minutes after this conversation is over, they have a bit more courage, or they behave from their place of power a little bit more potently than they have before. And let that be a beginning. And let us all know we all have to start somewhere. It looks differently for each and every one of us, but I'm going to have power trips. Bitch, you can't tell me that. And then I'm going to have power dips. Be like, bitch, I ain't no one. And, it's okay. How long do I stay in those power dips?
Yeah.
And can come out. That's also changing for me as well.
What I used to see as a therapist, especially with people who were working through depression, is I would predict it for them. I'd say, there's going to be a day you're going to walk into my office. Please tell me if I've told you this before, Derek. But I'd tell them, there's going to be a day you're going to walk in my office and you're going to say, Dr. Wall, I'm so tired of having to do all this work. And I can't believe I still am telling myself X, Y, and Z. And I said, when that day comes, I want you to remember the session. Literally, once I accepted a patient in my very first session with them, I'd say this. I'd say, I want you to remember my words. When you get to that day, I'm going to tell you, look how far you've come. You went from not even realizing what was going on, and it would happen automatically all the time, to now being at a point where you catch it nearly every single time. And is it exhausting to have to catch it? Challenge it, try to replace it with something real, have that hold for about 45 seconds until the thought pops back in or shows up. I'm like, absolutely. But those thoughts are cycling through your head right now. You don't even catch them. You don't even notice they're there. So I'm sorry, the day that comes, I'm not going to feel sorry for you. I'm actually going to point out how awesome it is that you've come this far. Right. And I think about that, like these power dips that you're talking about. Part of the problem is when we experience them, when we truly experience them and are aware, oftentimes we feel guilty. Sure. That conversation I just told you, it happened at multiple levels. There was the realizing I felt that way. Then there was the realizing I felt that way, and going, dear Lord, seriously, are we having this conversation? You know better. It doesn't really matter. Nobody's listening that closely. That was my favorite one. One of my mantras is, you're not Oprah Winfrey. Nobody really cares whether you show up or not in any space. Like, nobody's paying that close attention to what I do. If I'd miss a newsletter or miss posting, or nobody's following you that closely. And it was a reassuring thing. It wasn't a put down thing. Sure. But for all of us, and I really mean all of us who are working on this, it's realizing that the moment you catch yourself, you're going to want to feel bad about yourself for a split second. It's like if Derek noticed he was feeling weak and then gave himself crap and told himself he was weak for feeling weak. But if you can catch yourself in that moment and realize, man, the fact that I'm even self-aware is pretty cool. And then to go back to what you said about options and optionality, using that moment to say, well, now I have an opportunity.
Right.
And the opportunities are really endless. We're just limited. We're just monkeys, right? We're super limited in how we think. So we like think of three or four, but they're really limitless opportunities.
Sure.
And I can have agency, which means I then can create my fate by making a single decision. Can I share something I wrote last night? I was journaling last night.
Of course.
Okay, it's a whole page, but it shouldn't take too long. I wrote, time is expansive. Opportunity is all around, all around, all around, all around, all around, all around. I wrote it in circles around the word opportunity. Confidence is knowing I've got this. I've got this. It's not thinking that you're amazing. It's not thinking that you're successful at everything. It's not thinking you're the best. It's just knowing I got this. Like, even if it blows up in my face, I got this.
Yep.
Trust is faith in yourself and in others who give you reasons to trust them. Agency is taking ownership of your life with every choice you make. This next one is not from me, it's from Jiddu Krishnamurti. Fear is uncertainty in search of security.
Mm.
I crossed out the word security and I wrote the impossible, because security is impossible to achieve.
Mm.
And then I wrote, time is what gives me access to opportunity, which is all around me. Confidence comes from trust in myself, combined with agency, the willingness to do things that feel uncomfortable, that feel scary, that are uncertain. Confidence and opportunity together need to be enough to put fear aside. Fear will never go away, but it cannot have the final say.
One, fucking beautiful. Two, please share that with me, because there's so many things that I heard, the connections and the through line, that I was like, ooh, bitch, I'd love to be saying this in my car on the way to somewhere or whatever. Like, there's some really well phrased definitions or reframes in there that really have a little bit of chills on my thighs.
This is what I do, right? Like, the work that we do for others is the work we do for ourselves. We might be at different levels, at different stages, in different moments, right? I think there are moments where I'm definitely exactly where my clients are, and there are moments where I'm light years ahead. And the beauty is sometimes there's always been a point where I was miles behind. And so I can see where they're at and go, I know that I'm looking at it through a rear view mirror. And so just so you know, there's a road ahead of you. But even in that space, these are the reminders. I wrote this for myself last night as a reminder. Yeah. Starting simply, the only thing I wanted to write down were the two first ones: time is expansive and opportunity is all around. Because if time is expansive, then opportunity, is there. And then I was like, oh, well, now I want to continue on this. This is that. So, and then this realization that actually these things all tie together. If time is expansive, then that is how opportunity can be all around. If you miss an opportunity, if you make a mistake, if you say yes to the wrong person or say no and think that you've lost the one, like, there's another opportunity if you give it enough time.
I'll share this. Last week, maybe more so than in weeks before, I've been told, Derek, you're charming, you're magnetic. And I'm like, great. I don't get what that means. I don't understand what that means until I went to this intro session to like hot cold therapy. And the presenter was speaking from his point of expertise, which was really around breath work. And then once that part was over and we were to explore the hot cold part of it, all of whatever his expertise was like turned off. And I was like, oh, he's not magnetic. Because if I jumped into, well, if I did, I would do all these things. And I was like, oh, I started taking ownership over what magnetism is. And then I took it to another level because I'm having some of my own issues with insecurity around finances, abundance, money, all these kinds of things. And I have just been reclaiming, going, no, money flows to me. I'm a magnet for money. I'm this, this, and this. And today, I was notified of an account that had thousands of dollars in it that I didn't even know that I had. It literally came out of nowhere at the perfect time. And I just want to name that here in this conversation right now for a variety of different reasons. One is because part of me feels like, ooh, sharing that is vulnerable and would make me look weak. But the whole conversation is like, that's bullshit.
Mhm.
And also to demonstrate the little bit of taking ownership or reclaiming my power that has been told to me in other ways that I didn't get, that I'm now starting to understand too. And I think that's a beautiful realization for me to name in this conversation. Um, and I think it also helps me do it faster and for other things I'm unaware of. Because if that's true, what other parts of me can I start to turn on so I'm having this ultra magnetic, whatever powerful situation? And I can't explain really how this all has happened or lined up, but at the same time, it's like, that's the beauty. You don't have to.
No.
It's just how it works. It's just how it works when you're working in this fashion. And I don't know. I want to say that to, I think inspiration is a big thing. And if part of the conversation that we're having can inspire the listener to uncover their own power or to reflect on it or to encounter it or to uncover it or whatever it might be from listening to the way we're speaking, then so be it. And I didn't want to miss that opportunity.
I really appreciate that. And, I think I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I just stood there. I like the idea of inspiring the listener. You know me, break down the wall. I want people to leave with a question they can ask themselves. I want them to use this time not just to listen to two coaches do psychoanalysis on one another, and be philosophers for an hour, but also really this question of what you're getting out of it. We had talked about this before, how my very first coach asked me that question: where's one space, one role? He had me list all my roles, the roles I played in my life, more so than I had ever considered. And then he said, what's the one role where you never doubt yourself? Where's the one place where you never doubt yourself? Where's the one place where you always feel good, like you always feel on? I don't think that's a really great starting point for somebody who goes, I'm not powerful. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, or I don't have power, or I'm full of self-doubt. It's going, okay, those things might be true, that you're full of self-doubt, that you don't know where your power stands, but every one of us stands in our power in a certain space. And the thing is, it isn't circumscribed to that space. So if we can look at what's happening in that moment, then you can start generalizing that power to other areas. So the example I gave back in the day was, I said, when I'm in a teaching role, and I think he used that. He's like, sometimes you're an educator. I'm like, that's right. When I have an opportunity that I have this piece of insight and I get to impart that insight to other people, whether it's as a speaker on stage, or whether when my kids were small, it was sitting and teaching them something, or when I used to do parkour and little girls or women my age or older would watch me and I would stop and go, do you want to come and do this? Right? Like, no, I can't do it. And I'd break down the movement for them to show them that they could do it. I never doubt myself. I never doubt myself in those moments. And so the question becomes, if I can remember what it feels like to be in those moments, where can I recreate that feeling? But also, if I want to do the analytical work with myself or have somebody help me think through this, it's like, what is it about those moments? And where can I see echoes of whatever it is in other places, so I can also stand in my power in places that might not look like a stage or might not look like a webinar or a teaching moment, but really tap into the same piece or side of me that fundamentally I know, trust, and believe in. And I feel powerful in when I step there.
Beautiful.
So if you're listening, I'd love to know in the comments, like, what's that one thing you do where you're like, when I'm doing this, I feel like me. There is just no doubt. Like, It can be something that seems big and challenging, or maybe it's when you're cooking, when you're like looking in your fridge and trying to figure out how to throw the leftovers that you have together in a meal that's going to be amazing. Um, I don't know where it is, but I would be really interested in hearing what that is for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I have to jump off in 8 minutes, but I was wondering how your bringing fascinating people together last week went.
Yeah, so we did free intelligent conversation.
That's what it was.
Um, yeah, the one that I'll talk about probably right now was the last one that I had, which was a family of five, and they were from Mexico. They had three young children, and they were walking by, and the oldest of the children, the boy with these stunning gray eyes, who was 6 years old, kept stopping and looking at his mom and looking at me, and she was like, "Go up to him, go up there." And he just came up to me and said hi. I got down and I said, "Hey." And I said, "Would you like to talk to me?" He's like, "Yes."
Like, oh my goodness, an adult who wants to actually speak to me.
What do you want to talk about? Or and then he was kind of stunned, and then I just asked him about his favorite color. And then he started telling me about his siblings or whatnot. And his mother was helping him with his English a little bit. And the thing about it is, I guess the conversations that I had prior to that was with adults, mostly one on one, all very different. I was not expecting to like crouch down and connect with this young boy and his family. And it was so endearing. And regardless of whatever we talked about or whatever happened, I was just like, to watch them walk away, the beauty of this family, like eating ice cream and just sitting in the park. I was like, what? This is just like delightful. And I think I would have missed it. I know I would have missed it had I not been in a place where I was kind of encouraging that.
Mhm.
And you know, we got kicked out.
You did?
I've been, well, we were in a park, but it was actually private property. I had created an alliance with like Capital One Cafe, and I broke some of the rules. They took some of my signs down. They canceled my reservation. Like I literally got kicked out of this place, and we all survived.
Bravo.
Yeah, we all survived. We came back. My partner made a great dinner. We talked about all of our experiences. Here's the other thing. I was in, I could see some of the other people. It was me, Anna Maria, and two other friends. And some of them had person after person, and no one was talking to me. And I was like, what's going on? And then, I had to let go of, again, like, there's something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. This is just how it's going. Really excited. Want to do it again. I have another way of connection that's a bit different that I'm also probably going to try out in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, very exciting. Thank you for asking. It was, some people were like, great, we need that. Totally. Good for you. And other people were like, what? Which is fine, which is totally, totally fine. The preparation was interesting because making the signs, we created questions, like all these other kind of like trying to prepare for every scenario, which you can't. You have no idea what's going to happen. It's really hot out. I brought some cold drinks. Nobody wanted any. It was all good. I had a great time just allowing myself to step into the unknown a bit and connect.
Yeah, I think that exploring really, I mean, we go back and I will share it with you, I'll write it, but security is the impossible, right? So you're trying to prepare for every single. If you have never read Jiddu Krishnamurti, I highly recommend. Modern day philosopher. I mean, he died in the 60s, I think, but still modern day. And he has some really great things to talk about anxiety and fear. And so I might have said anxiety is uncertainty in search of security, but I just replaced fear. And it's just this impossible thing. That's this whole premise as a philosopher. And so you are trying to prepare. We try to prepare to reduce insecurity, to create security, but it is absolutely impossible to create. So I'm glad that you were surprised by a little boy with magnetic eyes himself. I think
Mm-hmm.
children sometimes, when you give them room to speak, parents tend to be really apologetic about children being oversharers and overtalkers, but as somebody who used to have kids at that age, who definitely was that child, I delight in it. I delight crouching down and speaking to little humans who are just like, they assume, and I mean, if we could bottle that for us, they assume that what they have to say has value to other people, and not in an entitled way, just in like, this is really interesting to me, and I want to share what's really interesting to me with you. And I think you're going to find this interesting too. So I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to get lost in all my details because, like, did I tell you about my family? This is my sibling, and they're as adults, we need to recapture that sense that if we're interested, it's probably somewhat interesting, which doesn't mean everybody's interested. We can gauge that. We've got social subtleties as adults that we can deploy to determine whether what's interesting to us is actually interesting to other people, but at least start with that premise.
Sure. The childlike, thing too, that approach. I loved his curiosity. I love that he observed, he stood, he watched, he connected, he looked, and all of those things. I was like, I have to talk to this boy. It was really precious.
Well, I'm really glad you did it. We'll do it one day, that with a hug, right?
Yes, when we
free intelligent conversations and hugs.
Exactly.
Two in one.
It's coming.
It was wonderful, and I can't wait to reconnect with you in a couple weeks. Between now and then, you have fun at Mass.
Thank you.
And I'll have fun in surf. I'll have fun in Costa Rica. You have fun in Massachusetts, and I'll see you on the other side of it.
Absolutely, love. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.